Hello viewers, I am going to discuss the topic Iran-Israel war, the global response. We know last month was the very significant historical month in the context of the international relations. One side there is a India, Pakistan, the flashpoint was there in the South Asia. Second, after the ending of there is a Israel-Iran war was begin in the month of the June. Despite the facts there is an ongoing war between Ukraine and the Russia. So if you look at what is the causes, what is the implications of the Iran-Israel war, and why the major powers, especially U.S., China, Russia, including India, European countries, and European unions, how to respond, what was their roles in the Iran-Israel war or during the war and the post-war. Because if you look at the geographical conditions, international politics, the West Asia or whatever the Western country, the Middle East is very significant to the world politics, also for the geoeconomics perspective, also from the context of the geopolitics. So let's see know what was the situations, why this happens, what was the implications, and what is the ongoing crisis today. If you look at the whole conditions, the yesterday Iranian premier or prime minister has given one interview with the Al Jazeera. He just given the many remarks about what happens and what will be the next plan for the ongoing uh, Iran-Israel war. Second side, it is the Americans who intervene in the Iran and Israel and then discuss the and announce declare the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, like whatever the Trump claim in the last times when the India and Pakistan happens, they are ready for to fight on the name of the Operation Sindoors, whatever the President Trump claimed. So if you look at it is the 12 days after that, around is the 13th June or 12th June, when the war started, the Israel who started the Operation Rising, the military attacks against the Iran, because this is the historical rivalry between the Irans and Israel. Not right now after of the Second World War. Look at the establishment of the Jew countries. There is Israel there. Second, it is the whole Islamic country was Iran is a Islamic country. After the 12 days of the fightings, the peak of the decades long confrontation between the Jerusalem and the Tehrans. That means the Israel and the Iran. If you look at the exchange of it, is the first times they use the latest weapons, advanced technology in the cyber attack to the nuclear attacks, missile attacks, air-to-air missile attacks. Then come to the another war, how to the attack to the Iranian enrichment centers, because the one cause was there, the Americans and the Israelis to stop the Iran for producing the uraniums based whatever the nuclear uses for nuclear facilities. So intensification of conflict has involved the West Asia for the last we can say in the last 12 days in the last month, that after the President Trump involved in there and then they declared the ceasefire. If you look at the whole conditions, the missile attacks, retaliations in 12 days of the direct conflict between the two countries. One is both are claiming there's a nuclear state, directly or indirectly, but it is also exposed the regime in inability to protect its civilians and cities from the foreign attacks, especially the Iran's and Israel also. So we cannot say that it is the war for the one country. Both countries were affected due to their use of the latest advanced technology in the form of the weapons. So it is the old decades. We say it is the quite cold in rapidly heating up in the days since the first Israeli attack is there. Yesterday, July 2023, 25, 20, July 23, the New York Times claim there is a series of fire and explosions within the Iran after the, or we can say the since the Israel-Iran ceasefire, the public anxieties and suspicion among the Iranian officials about the Israeli sabotage. Look at the geographical condition of Iran, where the major cities was attacked by Israel's through the drone attacks and missiles. If you look at the geographical conditions of Iran in West Asia, in the view of India, because it's the part of the West Asia where conflict is immersed. Earlier it was with the Israel-Palestine, but today it is the Israel and Iran. So there is a question here arises, what was the conflict between Israel and the Iran, and the role of the US will be avoidable and unavoidable. What is the most convincing evidence from these images? It is the American support Israel, who started Operation Rising Lion against Iranians. So these cities, especially if you look at the Israel positions in the West Asia, the near about there, where they attack to the Iranians sites, nuclear sites, military sites, and as well as it is the civilians. Second side, if you look at the Israel, Palestinians, this is the conditions of the West Asia, where the two countries always engaged the war. We hear about the Lebanon and either the Sudan, and many countries is there, not the Syria and others are there. So whole region is under the conflict of resources, conflict of, we say the geopolitics is there, international relations after the Second World War. So this is not the first time Israel was the victims of the terrorism, or we can say the second side of the story. It is that there is always rivalry between the Iran with the other Islamic countries. Iran and Israel's open warfare after the decade of the Shadow War. I earlier said it is the 60s when started the conflict between Israel and Iran and other West Asian countries. In the recent attacks, the last month, Israeli airstrikes at embassy in the Damascus on April 1, the first of the wider escalations since the war in Gaza began the last year. The enmity stretches back decades. Second side of the story, if you look at whatever within the Iranian regime, so pragmatic conservatives seek to resort influence and foreign policy, counterbalance hardliners' opposition to diplomacy with the West. Yes, Iran has the support of China, direct or indirect, the Russia. So it is the Iran's calibrated response to the Israeli attack there regarding the recent, but there is also Iranian attack in Qatar, the US based, some military bases is in Qatar, but it is the different side of the story here. Whatever the Americans claims or whatever the Iranians say, it is the as a defense Iran attack on the US airbase. Earlier, the President Trump say we are not going to involve in the Iran-Israel war. But if you look at the history of Israel, Palestine or Iran, it is the 1948 where United States President Harry Truman recognized Israel as a state of Israel in 1948. To come to the history of June 21, where the United States bombed 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, marking it the entry in the war for Israel, and the previous struck military and nuclear targets in the Iran. Why US involvement Iranian attack? The first reasons The US planning to halt it whatever the Western claimings Iranians enrichment programs of the uraniums, the use of uranium for the making lethal weapons, nuclear bombs, or atom bombs. So, second side of a story, if you look at the geopolitics or the security challenges in the West Asia, military footprints is always there in the Middle East or the West Asia. Look at the pictures where almost all countries, there is a US base is there in the last 40 years or 50 years, especially Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, State of Hormuz, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, all are there. The largest military installations in the West Asia. So these American bases help the decide the geopolitics strategy, the strategic partners with the Americans, with the different dynamics of the international relations and the global politics. It was started in the Six-Day War in the 1967. First was that time the Israel and Arab neighbors, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, entered the war. It was the beginning of the whatever the conflict between the sovereign countries, the Israel versus other Islamic Republic. Here, Americans directly involved with the support and favors and secure the identity of Israel there within the Islamic entity. Some of the refugees, the captured areas, Jordans, many camps is there. Philistines was also there, one of the call for the homeland after the 67. Recently, American newspapers also claim American strike did not destroy Iran nuclear programs, intelligence report says. It is the BBC reportings. But whatever the American B-10 or B-12 or B-22 bombers attack to the Iran nuclear sites, they claimed that time during the after the 13th June, when Americans involved there for during the 12 days war, after starting of the war, they claims they destroy the Iranian nuclear programs, but Iranians always denied whatever the American claims. But it is the BBC reportings. Americans reporting is different. Whatever the American officials is claiming. So these newspapers, if you look at the President Donald Trump speak for the East Room, the White House, the part of the White House, the television monitors the James Brady press briefings rooms, Washington's on June 21, where US military struck the attack in Iranian sites. So after the post 21, the war was began on 12 or 13th June. Around after the 1 week or 10 days, the Americans started and initiated attack to the Iranians' nuclear facilities. If we look at the global response, why global response is important? One side, because Russia and China warning the US, if you directly involved in the Iranians-Israel war, then we'll definitely support to the Irans. We definitely support to the logistics, weapon support to the Irans. That's why if there is a conflict is escalations, then it is the global impacts on all countries across the world, either European countries or South Asian countries, including India, and then the other part of the world. So global response is important. How to halt it or stop it, the ongoing war between Iran and the Israel. So it is the American presidents who always come to the television address and they claim, yes, I am taking the credit to halt it or ceasefire for Iranians-Israel war after the 12 days. So, but it is the temporary ceasefires. Whatever the term and conditions, nobody knows. It is the three countries One is the Israel, second is the Iran, and third is the mediations between the US. So whatever American President Trump is claiming is used to be seems to be the correct. It is the reference point for the world all. Nobody is denied it. Tehran needs the space to negotiate and cooperate the whatever the Americans' pressure is there to halted the nuclear programs. Second side, Israel has shown it had conducted a of war against the Iranians' homeland. So it is the massive attack from the crossfire from the both sides. The Israel-Iran, the concluded but not resolved. We can say this war is concluded but not resolved. What about dispute, disagreement between the two countries? But there is also intervention of the Americans is there. Israeli says it is the victory day for him. It is the victory day for Israel's. But second side of the story, it is the Iranians also claim it is the victory day for Iran's. And third story is the entering of the great power or whatever the superpower. It is the Americans president who say it is the victory for me. I halted the war between the two military powers in the West Asia. So all parties claim their victory for the ceasefire. Whatever determined the end of the 12-day war. If you look at the international organizations, they play the very important role for negotiations, for whatever the preambles, the charters, the purpose and the principles. If you look at the Article 1, the purpose of the United Nations was to maintain international peace and the security and take off effective collaborative measures for the prevention, removal of threats in the peace and for the suppression of the act of aggressions. Other breaches of the peace bring about the peaceful means and conformity with the principle of justice and international law. International dispute situation which might lead to the breach of the peace. But in this context, United Nations has the very limited role, despite the UN General Secretary has urged to both nations to halt their military aggressions, military attacks against each other. If you go through the United Nations UN charters, preambles, whatever the conventions, to develop friendly relations among the nations based on the respect of the principles, equal rights, self-determinations of the peoples, they are appropriate measure of the strength and universal peace. But it is the powerful countries decide the destiny of the world. It is the great powers or the major powers, including China, Russia, US, European Unions. Sometimes India also play the very important role in the international relations and global politics. So United Nations General Secretaries Guterres urges Iran and Israel to fully respect the ceasefire. Whatever he just tweeted, I very much welcome President Trump's announcement of the ceasefire between the Israel and Iran. The second line, I urge two countries to respect it fully. Fighting must stop. The people of the two countries already suffered too much. It is my sincere hope and this ceasefire can be replicated in the other conflict in the region. Yeah, it's a good message. But it is matters the Guterres, Iran and Israel were the ceasefire. But what happened yesterday, that is 23rd July 2025? There is a lot of news in the air from the Iranian side, from the Israel side and the Americans. So, fragile ceasefires between the Iran and Israel marks the end of the current and thus for the severe phase in the ongoing hostilities between the Islamic Republic and Iran. If you look at the US, earlier denied that would not be any part of any conflict in there, but June 21, it is the Americans' planes, war planes, attack on the Iranians' nuclear facilities. marking into the war Israel launches the previous week, struck military and targets in the Iran. So after the 21, it is the new axis. Whatever earlier they claims we expected, the Israel and US combined devastated Iran nuclear capacity. Indeed, President Trump claims he has obliterated it. US is now openly targeting Israel, treating Israel like the Proctorate in actually been the recent decades. Second side, Russia already engaged war with the Ukraine's, despite the facts the President Putin's sees the current Israel war conflict is fluid and prefers to maintain good relations with all sides the time beings. So what about the ideal situations that trying to create the pressures to cease fire between the two countries as a mediator after the 21 June? So Vladimir Putin's also play that time the Iranian foreign ministers the visit Moscow during the conflict. China, yes, China is no doubt is the very strong economic and economic strategic tie with the Iran, Tehran's. Beijing cautious on rhetoric distant response to Iran-Israel conflict underscore the limits of its global influence. Xi Jinping say officially, China opposes any actions that infringe upon the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of the other countries, including Israel. So he's trying to manage or maintain the balance, but indirectly, China favors Iran. Iran is seen as the counterbalancer of the Western countries or Western influence in the West Asia. So Beijing supporting Tehran's become essentials, but China also hopes to achieve the same without disturbing in possibility of the peace. India, no doubt that during the war of Indian Prime Minister called to the Iranian president or premiers and also as well as the Israelis to urge both sides to avoid the escalatory steps. If you look at the European countries, they already was negotiated or part of the dialogues to how to halt Iranians' uranium enrichment programs, especially Germany, France, and the Britain's, the EU institutions, the future nuclear negotiations with Iran. But these times, whatever the European interest is matters, aggression and non-hold barred violence in the future. So recent Israeli assault on Iran suggested that the European Union's foreign policies, practice and toolkit for engaging preventive diplomacy rethinking, especially as the recent NATO summit pushed the European Union understanding the security towards having greater military capabilities. So trying to manage or maintain to halting the war, the objective of the European countries was also there, along with Russia and China, India also. Iran president, if you look at the yesterday's interview that was broadcasting by Al Jazeera, the Iranian president Masoud Pezeshkian has said his country is prepared for any war Israel might have waged against it, adding he was not optimistic about the ceasefire between the two countries, but confirming Tehran is committed to continue its nuclear programs. So a lot of controversies, lot of contradiction is there. Whatever the broadcastings that was aired yesterday. So all parties, especially Israel, Iran, and the US, all claiming it is ongoing conflict is there. It is the temporary halt of the war with Israel. So Iranian president's claim is that if Israel will attack, then we are fully prepared for any military aggressions by Israel's. So these kinds of the mindset or whatever the preparations it is already broadcasted yesterday. So let's see, think where, what will be the future, so what kind of the new escalations, attacks between the two countries, especially Israel and Iran. But President Trump is there. Yes, we are going to stop the wars anyway. It is the American credits goes to, it credit goes to the Americans. Whatever the claimings to halt the ceasefires between Iran and Israel, like whatever the Trump claimed already during the India-Pakistan Operation Sindoor. So this is the new flashpoint of the global politics in the 2025, in the last month, June, of international relations. Thank you.